Ion quiz number 7 contains examples of our last new rule. This rule, if you look through here, becomes obvious. We see a couple of things that haven't happened before. We see that we have sulfate and sulfite. We've seen that before, but we then have sulfate and something called bisulfite, and sulfite and something called bisulfite, and carbonate and something called bicarbonate. So we see scattered throughout here the prefix Bi, which we have to be really careful because in your life you have always correctly associated the prefix bi with the number 2, the bicycle, for example. And that is not going to work here with ions. That is not what the bi prefix means. In ions, if you ever see a bi prefix like this, it does not mean 2, it means hydrogen. It means that there's a hydrogen in it. So, and that makes sense if you look here, sulfate, when it becomes bisulfite, you add an H to the front. Here's sulfite, when it becomes bisulfite, you add an H to the front. Here's carbonate, here's bicarbonate, and the only difference is, it's not the only difference, but you do add an H to the front. So, get real good at just noticing if you have an H there, slap the prefix Bi on the front of the ion. If you have the formula and you're looking for the name, but then if you have the name and you're looking for the formula, you have a bi, slap an H in front of the formula that you already knew. But the other thing that you'll see is the charge changes. Sulfate, we made a big deal in the past about how the charges never change in these little families. Well, that changes now with the hydrogen prefix, because hydrogen, well, when you add a hydrogen ion to an ion, remember hydrogen itself has a +1 charge. So we're going to have to add 1 to the charge, and that you got to be really careful with that because these charges are negative. So -2, when you add 1, doesn't become -3, it becomes -1. It becomes 1 more positive, and -3, should it show up, and it will later, it would become a -2 when you slap a bi or a hydrogen in front of it. And so if we look here, we have carbonate, CO3 -2. And whenever we slap an H on it, it becomes bicarbonate, and when we slap an H on it, the -2 becomes a -1. Similarly, if I were to give you sulfate and then HSO4, well, look, it's the same ion. If this is sulfate, then the name of this is bisulfate. So, a pretty important rule will come up for several ions in the next couple of sections, and that will be helpful for you.